Hello and good morning, everybody. Good morning, Nir. Happy Friday. So I'm just getting situated myself. It's been a little bit of a crazy morning, so I'm gonna take a minute. I see some people coming in. Get some good mornings in the chat. I could use a pick me up this morning. Good morning. Let's see. Hello from India. How's it going? Thanks for coming in. Hey Artem. Thanks for logging on. We'll give it a bit. Honestly, a lot of this, I hope that doesn't become too obvious, but a lot of this stuff was prepared in the past couple hours. We're gonna try something later that I hope works. I think it will. I'll start at the 5 minutes, so I'll give it 2 more minutes. Giving it a test. Good morning, Raul. How's it going? Yes, it worked. Hey, chat. Let me know. Let me know if you can hear my computer fans going crazy. If it is, I'll shut some things down. Let me know if you can hear it. Oh, this is awesome. The Bears still can't hear them. Thank God. They are firing on all cylinders. Monza, I'm not putting that one up. They beat the Packers. How's it going? Good morning. Good morning. Welcome in. Just a slight hum. Yeah, it might get a little louder. Let's make sure I can run it again. Um, Using port 3004. That's not good. Okay, we'll get started here in a bit. Good morning, Jay. Thank you for coming on. Sick Legion hat. Thanks, buddy. Got on the merch store. Check it out. Okay. Let me just confirm that this runs really quick. looks good. That looks good. All right. All right. We're ready to go. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Let's get this show on the road. All right. Good morning, Nir. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining me for the first Innovation Sandbox workshop. Today, we're going to talk about building decentralized apps on Nir. But I was thinking about it, and I pivoted a little bit. Decentralized apps on Nir. I think it's more accurate to say sovereign apps. And that's kind of the direction that we're seeing as we're seeing more agents coming on like Moltbot, OpenClaw over the weekend, this past week, and all these other agents that we're seeing. We're seeing a convergence towards sovereign tech. And this presentation is about how Nir is well equipped for it. So we're going to talk about what is decentralized versus sovereign. We're going to throw back to probably 2 years from now. What was boss Nir Social when Nir was the boss? Maybe it still is. We're going to talk about how Nir is built for the open web, how to put everything together, and then a conclusion and some office hours. So I'll stay on probably for the whole hour. If you are a developer working on the Innovation Sandbox, feel free, field your questions. I'll be here to answer them for anything that you're working on. Okay, so first, let's talk about what decentralized versus sovereign apps are. And this was something I kind of had to learn myself because these words they haven't clicked for me. So decentralized is all about who enforces the truth. So it's a consensus among all the different nodes that build your app. You're spreading your state around this consensus. Your app uses this shared. That gives it a guarantee. So no single party can shut down the entire application. It will live on. Now, there's definitely some caveats to this. So you can think about, for example, if an example of decentralized app would have a smart contract or would have access keys or this account model that we'll talk about, maybe the centralized bit of the stack is talking about maybe your UI for the application or the indexers that run and make it happen or the RPC nodes that you need to go on. But maybe these things, RPCs, indexers, or the UI, are a little bit more sovereign. So what is sovereign? You maybe heard of sovereign citizen or sovereign state. And that's ultimately about who has the ultimate control and the control over that exit. Do you have control over your life? Maybe you've heard about sovereign in some ways. So are you able to swap things out? Is it modular? Can you replace items about it? If one team or site were to die, or if something like that, could the users keep on using the app? Could they revive it and keep it going? Now, sometimes there's a caveat here with being sovereign, is that there's maybe one blessed client. So there's a website that everybody goes to. Even though you can run it yourself, nobody really does run it yourself. Or maybe you have a hosted API that does it. But an example of sovereign tech has been the Boss Vision that we saw with Nir Social. And something that I'll talk about today with Module Federation and how you're able to swap out modules in certain ways at runtime. As well as other examples of sovereign tech would be self-hostable infrastructure that you can swap out for yourself, maybe even like the RPCs. So the test for either one of these, for if it's a decentralized app, is can one operator cheat and shut down the whole system? And then for sovereign is, can one operator kill or trap the app? If those tests pass and you get no, then that means that you've built a decentralized and a sovereign app. So we're going to do a little bit of throwback. This is 2 years ago, I want to say. Something came on the scene. It was called Nir Social. Got rebranded as a boss, but it represented something really cool. It was this idea that you had all these components and code stored on chain. and then we would pull and query that code. We'd run it in this little the VM, we'd call it, but it was ultimately like a parser that ran in your browser that would run this like JavaScript pseudo code, and would render all these things. So every single thing right here was called a widget, and then it was all stored on chain. And even the posts were on there, your follows, people were on there. It was a really exciting time, in my opinion, and it really promoted something that was kind of cool. You could come up and you could click this button here, and you could fork an entire page. So even though Near Social was the gateway, it was sovereign in the way that you could deploy your own gateway, and you could fork the code, and you could switch things out however you wanted, and you could deploy it yourself. And then it was decentralized, and the fact that this code was stored on chain. If Near Social was wiped off the face of the earth, the profiles were still there. That account profile data was stored on chain. All the widget data, all the widget code, and all these things, the components itself were stored on chain. It's not going anywhere. So, but the reality is, since then, the product has been deprecated. You can go on there now and you can create a profile, you can kind of explore, you can still fork, and you can still publish and mess around. But ultimately, it's been deprecated in ways, and I would say there's definitely security concerns. So don't go too crazy with it. But the idea lives on. It moved to better tooling, and the underlying primitives of the Near blockchain still support this entire platform and what's possible with it. So sometimes I do know that for Near Social can be a touchy subject for people, maybe boss or whatever, but I wanted to show it because Near Social and the boss gave me a lot of inspiration and opened me up to the world of what you can build on Near. And I hope that by exploring it, maybe that'll do the same for you. So let's talk about how this lives on. How is Near built for the open web? It comes down to some core 5 primitives. One, which is a very big one, is the identity, this human readable account. So the profiles live on, they're on chain. You have these accounts that are also smart contracts and can have permissions. They have limited access keys that can be delegated or revoked by the chain itself, not a centralized authority. And that's really cool, especially like, let's say you're building a whole host of applications and you want to maintain that profile or that login across all of them. Near lends itself really well towards this universal account model. Of course, there's truth. So smart contracts are decentralized by nature, being on the blockchain, and that's kind of how it you get your truth from the state that's stored on the smart contracts, which we can touch on more as we bring into other things such as the portability and the bridging. So in these smart contracts on Near, they're super powered. They have chain signatures. You can essentially put a private key for Near blockchain or other blockchains inside of a smart contract. Or maybe it's not a private key. Maybe you want to do an API key or whatever. But by using this MPCs, the multi-party computation network that Near supports, your keys are safe and they're able to be addressed through the smart contract to be used in operations. And when you take that and you bring it and you combine it with something called yield resume, which is very unique to Near, you can yield execution and resume it at a later block, which when you combine it with something like verifiable execution, which means that you're maybe yielding execution to an external service that you know runs in a trusted execution environment, you know the code that's running inside of it. When it resumes, you can verify that it resumed from that trusted execution environment and ran the code that said it did. And so you can continue provable off-chain work. So all these type of things, when you put them together, and I hope that you explore during this hackathon, they really paved the way for a open, permissible web. For example, so there's a couple of projects that really highlight this. One is DNS, Near DNS. If you go to this IP address, which is essentially hosting the DNS server, you can see and you can load a decentralized DNS server. A near account, such as ephys.near or near-dns.near, essentially will resolve the DNS records that that you need. So near DNS is an example of something that is decentralized. Maybe it's not sovereign because you're not really exactly swapping it out, although maybe the DNS record, I don't know. But yeah, that's an example of something that is decentralized. And then you have something like near private cloud AI, which is sovereign, where you we have AI models that are deployed to these trusted execution environments, and because that because the apps are not the middleman between the AI, you can take your AI with you. I wish I could say that better. But near private cloud AI is sovereign in the way that you can take your AI and your data with you. It's you are in full control of it. Nobody else is. Something that's really popular that has been is Web 4. So this is an example of something that is maybe sovereign and decentralized. It's sovereign in the way. So Web 4, just really quick, you essentially take a front end bundle and then you store it on IPFS through something called NearFS. And then you request and serve it through a smart contract. So that smart contract basically acts as your server-side renderer that is rendering your fully distributed bundle. So in that way, it's sovereign and it's decentralized. It's sovereign that you can swap out the bundle and you can swap out your contract. You can deploy it yourself. You have full control over what your Web 4 page is, and it's decentralized in that your bundle is stored on, IPFS, a decentralized file system or protocol. And then the state of it is in itself in the Web 4 smart contract that you deploy. When you put these things together, you get something like Near Treasury, which is sovereign and decentralized. It uses Web 4 almost for the entire app. It uses Web 4. It uses BOS components. So everything about it, the code is stored on chain. It's served from a smart contract. It has to do with DAOs. It's essentially a treasury for working with your Sputnik DAO, which is decentralized by nature. It's a multi-sig. This is pretty much kind of the pinnacle of what you can build on Near for decentralized and sovereign apps. Of course, this week we also saw Near Email, also sovereign and decentralized. The emails are, man, I'm gonna butcher this. But every Near account essentially you can have your own email and you can encrypt your messages and send them using Outlayer, which use that verifiable off-chain computation. I hope you explore during the hackathon. And then, of course, shade agents, also sovereign and decentralized. It's sovereign in the way that you can switch out your shade agents, and it's you can build agentic protocols where an agent can die, but since the code still lives on, you can still deploy it anywhere else. And decentralized in that state that is managed by this shade agent is ultimately stored in a smart contract. So again, kind of the pinnacle of what you can build with Near Tech. So okay, so building on Near. Typically, if you want to build on Near, I encourage you, scan this QR code, go to the builder resources. You can run create Near app. There's plenty of templates that are available, plenty of starter kits. You have your choice of a TypeScript package to use. Near API JS just got a new version. Near Kit is a little bit of a fan favorite, as well as my own. Near API TS is kind of like this high performance new kid on the block. You should check out and try all of them. Each one has its own pros and cons. You can also, building on Near, because it has a WASM runtime, you can build your smart contracts and whatever that would support. So you can, right now we have Rust. You can write your smart contracts in Rust. You can write an assembly script. As well as we have SDKs that are available in probably whatever language that you want, Python, Go, Kotlin, Swift, all of this is available. Now, this is like the typical near journey that you can take. You can go do these and build your own decentralized and sovereign apps, weighing the pros and cons of each. But the purpose of this workshop is I want to present to you an opinionated framework that I use that you can do to get started. And it kind of builds on the concepts and the underlying ideas of the BOSS, the blockchain operating system. So it's kind of a culmination of a few different packages. It uses Better Nearoth, which is, it uses Better Nearoth, which is Better Near, or it's a Better Auth plugin. It uses the Hot Wallet Connect and also NearKit. It's composable and modular in the same way that BOSS was. It uses a framework called Every Plugin, which you're able to compose together API modules via module federation. And then deployment and distribution, which is kind of the same way that BOSS used to be. We are going to throw our configs up into Near Social. We're actually going to publish them to Near Social. And then because of that, we can run them from there. So to get started, there's a command right here, bunx everything -dev, create, and then a project. And I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. We're going to try this out and we're going to see if it works. I was maybe messing around with things a little too much. All right, let's do this. How do I do this? All right, sorry everybody. You're going to get the terrible tunnel screen of death. But it's just because I only have one laptop, one screen. And the fans are about to kick on, so just so you know. But here's the command. So we've got something, I'm going to go into a different directory. Okay. Bunx everything -dev create. Let's create a project called to do. Sure. So some of these things are going to take a little while. If anybody has any questions in the chat, feel free to send them. Man, you can see everything on my screen right there. Yikes. Oh man, you guys can see everything on my screen. How am I going to do this? Oh, that's what it is. There we go. So there it is. It's the boss. We're bringing it back. So this is cloning everything into the repository, and then it's got a few things to sync. So, okay, so now we're going to cd into it. We're going to install the packages. Fun boss dev. Okay, so what we're doing right here is we're building three different remote modules, but one of them, the UI, is getting built into two separates, a server-side bundle and then a client-side bundle. But you can come up to this top and you can load everything through the host. So if you start this, you'll get started with an application that has already near auth inside of it. You can log into it. You have, oh man, that's not gonna work. Yeah, here, guys, I'll describe a little bit how this works. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm gonna spend too much time on it. I don't think I can. I've got my fans are going off on my computer. I already noticed that something's broken. And then I'll just leave the time open for if anybody has any questions about your projects. Maybe you're working on something. If you want to talk about tooling, that's all okay. But I just want to say that the cool thing about this application is that it's split into a couple of different remote modules. So right now, this boss config is empty. But I can, for example, let's do that. I can sync it. So I'm going to sync it to account ID every.near. Oops. Domain everything.dev. So I've got this one, I think it's gateway. Okay. Yikes. Nice. I like it. Thanks, Apodex. Okay, so I just synced it with this a boss config that was stored on the blockchain. In it, we have shared modules that are shared between the UI and the host. And then we have these like remote bundles. So if we can, there are these bundles that have something called a remote entry. Basically, in Module Federation, what happens is you bundle all this code together, and you kind of like give references to almost like, you can imagine like rather than having node modules installed to your like file system, you're like taking node modules and you're like throwing it up in the cloud. And then with the remote entries, it's like forming all those connections so that you can load it all async, and that like when you load one website and another one and you ever find that some like these dependencies match, then you don't have to install them again. You can just share the same dependency. And so in this case, the host has a lot of these eager dependencies that it loads first, and then the UI is coming on and it's seeing like which ones does the host have and how is it going to attach. So the CLI itself actually runs the dev command through this host. It loads this remote bundle, and then that remote bundle will read the UI and the API, and it'll understand how to bootstrap it. And you're able to like isolate the secrets that you give to it. And what's the point of all this? Well, it's because, okay, there's a few reasons. One, when we want to build better things with AI, especially when we want to support a lot of teams and a lot of different developers that share the same infrastructure, you want to be able to like have that core host code. So For example, a couple apps are using this framework, and if I want to update them to sync with like maybe the latest build, so maybe the host needs a newer version of TANStack router, and the UI needs to support that too. So maybe it has some improvements to SSR or something like that. You can you can swap out the UI that's rendered based on this remote entry URL that you have. It makes it swappable and composable. Let's say you wanted to build a marketplace or a merch or the merch store like we built with Near Legion. It uses this framework. Building and deploying a different one to like have a different view is ultimately just like building this UI, this route tree, which is just like a regular front end. It's exactly a regular front end, and it just swaps the remote entry and you can serve it. Yeah, I'll leave it there. So if, oh man, if you want to try it out, there's the command. I'll do something of it later. Anyways, I'll open it up to my other stuff. Office hours. Can I use a niche sports reference to explain this? Yeah. Let's say let's say the host. Yeah, let's say that the host is your GM. You know, he's picking who the head coaches are. He's picking his coaches. He's giving influence on these players, all these type of things. You can also fire GM. Like that's all cool too. You could swap it out. So if you have to, the framework that I was describing and splitting it into remote modules isolates everybody so that if the GM gets fired, not everybody's going to be butthurt about it, and they're going to be able to keep on working with it all because they still understand that everybody kind of has like the same contact points. Same thing for the players. If your quarterback's not performing well enough, you can kick him out, put somebody else in, a little bit more style, and they'll still work just like before. I hope that was good enough. Okay. I don't see a whole lot. So listen, there's plenty more workshops that are coming. We have a whole calendar lined up next week. They'll be better and more prepared than probably this one. But if you are working and hacking on the Innovation Sandbox, then please explore the builder resources that are available to you today. Set up your DevSpot project, join the Telegram, engage, team build, and ideate together, and then let's start shipping. So the hackathon is going on right now, January 26th until February 16th. You can scan this QR code. It'll bring you to the builder resources. You can explore the near tech stack. You can explore what makes it decentralized and sovereign and how to integrate it into your own apps. I'm glad it made a lot of sense. Thanks, Baza. Okay, everybody, I'm going to end it here, but thank you very much for tuning in for this workshop. The next one will be on Monday. We're going to have Julian from Nova coming on. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.